Hello, hello, and welcome to Fun, Faith, and Fuckery, the show that brings more play, pray, and slay into your day. I'm Nikki Bailey. I am a performer, writer, and Emmy-nominated producer. I have a Master of Divinity degree. I went to school to be clergy, and now I do this. Yay! I'm so excited about the show today. I have an amazing guest, my friend, relationship coach, speaker, and author, Trenia Parham. But before we talk to Trenia, I want to tell you how you can be more involved with the show and help make Fun, Faith, and Fuckery a success. So first way you can help us is support the show by telling your friends and family. Tell everybody. Share and help spread the word. Next way you can help is second, you can like and comment and review the show. So comment on Facebook and YouTube right now. You can comment right now. I can see your comments in real time, and it really enriches the conversation to have you all involved. So let me know your thoughts. Go ahead, chat up a storm. You can also leave 5 stars or give the show a thumbs up on wherever it is you find your podcast. Finally, making this show is a labor of love, but it also costs me a little bit of money. So if you want to support the show financially, you can join me on Patreon, where you can support monthly and gain access to extra features and special content. Or if you want to make a one-time donation to the show, you can do it through Venmo at Nikki-Bailey-2. So check out my website to find out more about how to support the show. And let's get started. So today, I'm going to just keep it 100% real with y'all, okay? 100%. This is just me speaking from the heart, telling you the truth as I know it, as I see it. I'm tired, y'all. I'm tired. I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know how long the show going to be today. I'm not even going to lie to you. I'm exhausted just from putting on the makeup and the clothes. I'm not even going to lie to you. I went to Disneyland on Tuesday. And when I tell you that I am tired still from Disneyland on Tuesday, it's Thursday. I went to Disneyland 2 days ago, and I'm still tired. My feet still hurt. Y'all, I don't mean to be complaining and what have you, but a bitch is tired. A bitch is tired. First of all, Disneyland is huge. There is no way you can do it all in one day. And we had to do 2 parks in one day. We had to do California Adventure and Disneyland. Bless my poor partner's heart. She literally got me through it. At some point, I was so tired that I was like, we got to get a scooter, or somebody got to get me a conveyance of some kind, because it ain't no way. I had gotten up to 13,000 steps. 13,000 steps, which for me is about 6 miles. And I was just done. I had walked a 10K, and I could not do no more. So we're sitting in the cantina in Star Wars world. And I said, babe, we have to get a scooter or something. I got a scooter. And I motored around Disneyland like a senior citizen. And I'm going to tell you what, it was some good shit. Get you a scooter. When you go to Disneyland or Great Adventure or Six Flags or whatever the fuck you go, get a scooter. The other thing about the scooter was when I rolled up on the scooter, I got to the front of the line for the rides, y'all. I just want to give Disneyland their props for accessibility and for making sure that people who are not necessarily able to walk up all the steps to the ride, and who may not be able to stand in a 90-minute line for a ride, thank you, Disneyland, for making it possible for us to still have a good-ass damn time. I had a good-ass damn time. I had the most delicious corn dog I've ever had in my life. I had some kind of Asian beef taco that was delicious. I should probably talk about more than the food at Disneyland, because I realized that just talking about the food is a little bit fat. Now, I'm not saying anything negative about fat. I'm just saying, in my family, when you get real excited about your food, we say, you acting real fat. And it's not an insult. It's nothing mean about it. It's just saying, ooh, girl, you real excited about your meal. And this is a perfectly fine thing. Hey, listen, if you're watching, comment in the comment section. Say hello. Let me know you're here. So I'm telling everybody about Disneyland because I had an amazing time. I had a blast. My girlfriend treated me to a day at the Disneyland parks, and it was a great time. I'm still tired though. And so because of that, I'm tired. I'm having these perimenopausal, no. Let me rephrase that. I'm having these menopausal hot flashes because I done reached the menopause. And I'm going to tell y'all, menopause is a spiritual experience. Y'all don't know. You might not know yet. It might not have come to you where you are ready yet. You may not be of age to experience the menopause. And some people have a terrible time with it. And I feel for those women. I feel for the women who have had a horrible experience with menopause. I'm going to tell you for real though, I love menopause. I love menopause. I love menopause. I no longer get a period. Thank you, Jesus. That's a spiritual experience. To go through an entire month without having to worry about whether or not I'm wearing white pants or leaving anything behind when I stand up. It's beautiful not to have a period, y'all. I don't have no cramps. My boobs don't get all tender and weird. I still have mood fluctuations, but that just proves to me that the mood fluctuations was never really about the hormones. They're just because I'm a moody bitch. That's all that really ever was. I'm a moody bitch, and I'm all right with that. So yeah, when don't be scared of menopause. Look at menopause as the freedom you have always wanted. Look at menopause as a gift from God, as repayment for the years of menstrual acne, of tenderness, of moods, of men making stupid, dumbass jokes because they don't know how anything works. Menopause releases you. It releases you from the period. It's a beautiful thing. And I wish all women a beautiful, wonderful menopausal experience because I'll tell you what, I am enjoying mine, loving it. Yes, I do occasionally get real hot. I get hot. I got to pull out my pride. My pride fan. It's our month, y'all. It's our month. Got to pull out my pride fan and, make it do what it do. Whoo, but menopause is a glorious thing. It's glorious. Nothing to worry about. I love it. And I'll tell you why I think it's a spiritual experience. There's something about, and we're going to probably talk about this when I introduce my guest. She and I talk a lot about the divine feminine, and there are these stages of womanhood, right? There's the maiden, the mother, and the crone. And you see this a lot in goddess traditions. And the maiden is the young woman, the young woman who is not yet come of age to become a mother, but is representative of life and new beginnings. I don't know. I'm making that up. There's also the mother who literally gives life. But when you get to the crone is where the wisdom of aging comes in. And I will tell you, y'all not going to believe it. I'm 48 years old. Yes. 48, hunty. Better believe it. I'm 48. And but I look like I'm young. I look younger than I am. But I'm really loving this crone energy and this crone magic and the wisdom of being a woman of a certain age. I still have a lot of years to go before I really fully enter into the crone stage, I think. But menopause is the first step. And I'm almost there. I'm doing that crone thing, y'all. Oh, yeah. Anyway, I'm really excited about my guest today because she is one of my closest friends. She is someone that I met gosh, we had to have met 20 years ago when I was starting seminary and she was in grad school to be a social worker. And we have become, we're like sisters, we're homies, we keep each other, we hold each other down, and we talk to each other about issues of spirit. We talk about what it means to be a Black woman in America. We talk about all the good, juicy stuff that you're about to get to experience with us, because I'm about to introduce you to my friend, relationship coach, speaker, author, with an MS in social work from Columbia University, 20 years of experience coaching women back to self. Yes. She helps women who are overextended and give too much reclaim their time and make themselves a priority without feeling guilty. She works with clients through virtual classes, one-on-one mentoring, group retreats. She also helps organizations create better work relationships to improve productivity, morale, and workplace culture, and retain staff. Y'all, give it up for my girl, Trenia Parham. Hey, Trina.
Hi.
Hey, girl. How you doing?
I'm good. How are you? Trying to get my lighting together.
Girl, you look
Uh,
good.
thank you. So nice to see your
It's
face.
so nice to see you. I miss you so much.
I know. It's the best when we get a chance to talk and catch up, and I'm
I
excited to be here
know.
with you.
Yay. So you're back in New York. You live in the Boogie Down, the Bronx.
No, Uptown Manhattan.
You live in Uptown. Excuse me. Excuse me.
Yeah,
I did not mean to move you
close
to a
though.
different borough.
That's okay.
In that
Yeah,
uptown Manhattan.
yeah.
Yes.
I've been here almost about 15 years, maybe 14, 15 years
So
in the
wow.
area.
So it's been that long. Gosh.
Mhm.
I'm thinking back
No.
to the days where we
Oh
lived in
man.
the dorm at
Uh,
Union Theological Seminary.
oh man. A
And
long time
a
ago.
long time ago. That was 2001, right?
That was right. I moved to New York the first time for school 2 weeks before September 11th.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, that was like a huge deal. Do you remember when I think you and I we went to Times Square to go to the movies and it was like tumbleweeds, like going down 42nd Street. It was so weird.
There was nobody
Um,
there. It was, yeah. After
yeah,
9/11, New York was creepy.
it really was. It was creepy
It
for
really
sure.
was.
So
So, Trina, which F do you want to talk about today? Fun, faith, or fuckery, or all three?
I mean, we could do all three, but let's talk about faith.
Faith! Hallelujah. Thank you, Jesus. So, so we have had a 20 years long conversation about our faith journeys. So tell me about yours. Tell me, how did you grow up in terms of your spirituality and faith?
Ooh, child. I don't know if I've ever talked about this publicly. So I grew up in a Baptist charismatic church. And, it was one of those churches with, shouting and dancing and speaking in tongues and all that. And I loved it. I loved going to church. I was a musician. I played the piano. So I love playing for the choir. I love singing in the choir. I love dancing in church and doing all that stuff that really just felt like home to me. And I know a lot of folks, have church hurt and stuff like that, but it's like I'd still be there if I could be. I mean,
Yeah.
I really did love it. And what ended up happening as the first thing that I started to notice as I got older was there was no real mention of the divine feminine or the feminine face of God. And it was always like, the women couldn't preach, the women couldn't do this, the women couldn't do that, but yet the congregation was like 80% women.
Mm.
And so none of it made sense. And so you have the church mothers, you have the deaconesses, you had the women in our church, they had to wear the little doilies if they were going to speak in the pulpit, stuff like that I thought was ridiculous. And then in middle school, I went to Catholic school. It was the first time I had to go to mass. And I remember the first time I heard the Hail Mary. And I was like, oh.
That's what.
And yeah,
Do you know it by heart? I just for people who don't know it, do you know it?
I do. The word, it's a Hail Mary. Oh, yeah.
Hail Mary, full of
Full of
grace,
grace, the Lord is
the
with
Lord is with
thee.
thee.
Blessed
Blessed
art
art thou
thou
among women.
among women. Blessed is the fruit of thy womb, Jesus. Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray
Pray
for us
for us sinners,
sinners,
now
now
and at
at
the
the
hour
hour
of
of
our
our
death.
death. Amen.
Amen. All right. You did good.
Yeah, and I heard that for the first time, and it was my first time experiencing really the veneration of the mother, and that carried with me, and so I was very involved in church and all of that, and it wasn't until really my 20s, and I was like, this is not working for me. It's like I just don't believe these stories in this way. And I'm like, I don't know what I believe, but I know this doesn't sit well with me. And it wasn't the church. It was the belief itself that didn't work for me.
And
It was go
that's
ahead.
really interesting because a lot of people who experience church hurt, or who have been wounded by church, or who no longer go to church or whatever, it's not it's partly the belief and partly the faith, but it's also a lot the people.
Yeah.
So for you, it wasn't the
No, it
people.
wasn't that. I think I love the church so much. And I think just being a musician and being around folks who were really just in that place, I just loved it. And so that really wasn't my experience with that hurt. It was more, again, it was just about the faith itself. Like I didn't believe in evangelizing. I didn't believe in doing all these things that, we were supposed to do. And I'm like, and by that point, I had been around folks at school who believed in other things, had different religions. And I was just like, there's no way this is the only way.
Yeah.
And of course I started traveling abroad and doing all these things, and I'm like, I know this can't be the only way, the only truth. It's just not possible to me.
So you ended up doing some exploration.
Yeah, I ended up doing a ton of exploration, and look, I still stuck my toe in the church and was trying to make it work. I remember one summer when I moved back to New York, and I was just going to every church possible. Like every Sunday I went to a different church thinking that was it, and I'm like, oh, that's not it. And
Yeah.
I finally just decided to just stop and take a
Church
step back.
hopping.
Yeah, doing
Yeah.
that and realizing that that wasn't it.
Yeah. Yeah. So you've gone through this journey. You've started to explore the divine feminine. Tell me about what was it about the divine feminine that drew you to that idea, to the concept? Why did it speak to you so much?
I think for me, I always felt a strong call to spirit. And so, growing up, always having dreams and having a prophetic gift, as they call it in the church, all these different things, and having that strong connection as a girl growing up, I think that was something that meant a lot to me. And knowing the power that women had, whether it was what they said or whatever it was. And the divine feminine, she came looking for me. Your girl came looking for me. So, and I've always had dreams, about many things that, very vivid. And one night I had a dream that I was in Fort Greene Park in Brooklyn, and there was some type of street fair, and a woman came up to me and she put a necklace around my neck and she said, "This is for your journey." And it was a necklace of the goddess, of a
Wow.
goddess. And that is really how my journey started with the divine feminine. And so that just made me curious. And that was probably like 17 years ago now.
Wow. And
So,
so I
yeah.
know we've talked a lot over the years about how Black church in particular, is chock full of women. Congregation is 80% women.
Hmm.
And yet, most churches are led by men, and the worship is aimed at a male god.
Hmm.
And the people who have the power in the church, in the congregation, the people who make the decisions are men.
Hmm.
And so, how is there a place? I mean, and this is something I don't know if we've talked about this. Is there a place to bring the divine feminine into Black church? Like, do you see a way to sort of bring that
Honestly,
there?
that's a really good question. Listen, if that would work, if there was a church like that, I'm sure I would be there.
Okay.
um, I don't. I mean, I just think there's a. I think particularly for the Black church, there has to be there has to be an understanding. I was going to say, come to Jesus moment, really, for lack of a better expression, around what the mother means to folks and what it means to the church and the role that women have played and seeing them as being really equitable, equal to the men in the church and the power that women bring. And I just don't know that the men or women want that, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
And so to me, the way that I do it is, I hold women's circles, I do a lot of that work. And I always tell folks, I hold circles like a Baptist preacher. I mean, that's just how I do it because it's my tradition. It's what I know. It's what I understand. It's what moves me. So, in my spiritual spaces, when I'm connecting to the feminine face of God or the divine feminine, that element is always present for me. But in terms of the church itself, I just think folks aren't ready or they don't want it, they don't believe it, they don't see the power in it. And I mean, that's going to take a lot of undoing, to be honest.
I think it speaks to a larger issue in African American communities in general, where you have Black women who take on the full brunt of care and nurture and often most, I don't want to say most, but often financial responsibility, where Black women basically run our communities. We run our movements. We run, basically if it's getting done, Black women are probably at the heart of doing it.
Absolutely.
And so, and yet we're still kind of connected to this kind of faith that doesn't celebrate us, that doesn't celebrate the beauty that is womanhood, that doesn't celebrate the beauty of Black women, that doesn't celebrate the value of Black women.
Absolutely. And I think the church does a number on all of our psyche so that we only believe this one way to be true, to be right. And that really starts with, male father God being the only way, the only path, and anything that strays from that is not accurate, real, or truth.
Yeah.
And whereas a lot of other traditions, they see the Holy Spirit or the Sophia as feminine. But Black church, at least not in the church I grew up in, said anything or believed anything like that.
Yeah.
So I think there has to be, but again, I just don't know if the church even desires that. I mean, it's still a big deal for women to even be preachers. And it's just like, which is
insane.
ridiculous.
21 years into the 21st century, and we're still having pulpits where women aren't allowed to preach, aren't allowed to pray, aren't allowed to speak. I mean, that's
or you got to wear some type of head covering, or you got to wear that thing, your lap
the lap scarf, the lap kerchief.
Yeah,
that you got to put over your leg, so can't nobody look at your legs and be led astray by your legs.
Yeah. So I mean, I just think the Black church isn't ready, at least not the church that I grew up in. And I don't know. I just I think we understand the feminine expression of God in very different ways, but not necessarily as sort of all-knowing, omniscient, omnipresent God. But there are elements, obviously, in the ways in which the women take care of the church, the way the women take care of everybody there. That is an expression of God to me. And so I think the way we understand it.
Yeah, I think I think that when you look at Black church in particular and you look at what the women are doing, we're doing the work of Jesus. We're doing the visiting the prisoners. We're doing the feeding the poor. We're doing the fighting for justice. We're doing that work. With very little. Oh yeah, Winona Wynn reminded me what it was called, the prayer cloth.
The prayer cloth. Oh yeah,
Yes, the
yeah.
prayer cloth, y'all.
Child.
Ciao. Um,
Mm.
so what do you believe today? I know that's a big question.
Oh, what do I
You
believe
took a deep
today?
ass breath. Okay.
I think you and I have talked a little bit about choosing faith and choosing to believe. And, I went through a long period where I didn't really believe in anything, but felt a compelling of some kind of need for a connection to something bigger than myself. And I would say now, I've chosen to believe in God. But God, to me, a significant part of God is the feminine face of God,
Yeah.
and seeing God embodied as me. And so that's really what I believe. And so I believe in a connectedness in all things. And I think that the expression of that connectedness, of that divine spirit, looks different and needs to look different for everyone.
Yeah.
And so that's a big part of what it needs to be for me, is to have that really divine feminine and masculine together, that feminine and masculine face of God together. So that's really what I believe. That's what I connect with. I also connect to my ancestors. So that's a big part of just sort of my day-to-day connection. And then also, although I don't practice Ifa or anything like that, I do connect to a few Orishas that have come to me. And so, and I do pray, work with that energy often. I still believe in the Holy Ghost. That's a powerful energy for me, always has been. And
Absolutely.
so that all together, really, I think expresses my faith. And for me, I do things like, meditation. I have an ancestor altar, things like that, or I set up altars for different things depending on what I need. So
And what do the altars help you do? What's the point of an altar?
So I was just talking about this to someone the other day. An altar for me is an opportunity it's a place for me to focus my energy, focus my intention, focus my attention. It's really a sacred holding space for me, where I can pray, I can connect, I can be held. I can ask for the things that I need, and I can, whether I'm doing lighting candles or pulling oracle cards or tarot or whatever it is, it's just a concentrated energy container.
Yeah.
And so that's usually how I do it. And there are different ways in which we can connect with that energy, whether it's just having a glass of water, or something that, I believe my ancestors desire. It's usually a food thing. This week it was bananas, or, lighting a candle, again, something to just focus that spirit within me and helping me to feel that connection.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's what it is for me.
That's awesome. I have an ancestor altar as well. And what I find so funny, because I think I grew up in a church where that would have been considered weird, having an ancestor altar. Now at the same time, everybody house you went to had a place where they had pictures of everybody who had died.
Mm.
Like everybody had, and everybody had that picture of Jesus next to
Mhm.
that picture of Martin Luther King.
Mhm.
And then
Mhm.
later Obama got put up there, like but even though we didn't necessarily call them altars or shrines, I think that they were still there in a lot of Black households, whether we call them that or not.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And my altar, it's so funny because when you were talking about you also you venerate your ancestors, and the Holy Ghost is still very powerful for you. I was thinking about the things that I say, who I address my prayers to. So
Mm.
when I pray, I say God, Goddess, Spirit, as in Holy Spirit, Jesus, ancestors, spirit guides, muses, and all the spirit animals, and anyone and everyone who has my best interest at heart. So like I include
Mhm.
all of that is included in spirit for me, in
Yeah,
who and what I pray to.
absolutely. And I do something very similar. For me, it's Great Spirit. Father God, Divine Mother, you know, to my well ancestors and my ancestors who mean me well,
Yes.
and to the Orishas that I'm working with at that time. I mean, and my higher self.
Yeah.
That's usually what I call in when I'm praying. And because really I'm a part of that prayer, you know, I'm connected to that. So
Yeah,
that's usually
I
how
left
my
my
prayer
higher
goes.
self out of that one too. I use that one too. Yeah.
Yeah,
Love that.
it's good
So
stuff.
we started a conversation a while back about struggle spirituality.
Yeah, girl.
Let's talk about that. Tell what and how do you define that? What does that mean to you when you hear that struggle spirituality?
So to me, it's a question that I have asked for many years, and it really starts with an initial question of what is the function of God? What is the function of spirit? How does it work? What is its job? Because, you know, when I was growing up in the church, a lot of what I saw were people who went to church every week, paying tithes and offerings, doing all these things, but still struggling to pay their light bill. I'm like, how is this happening? And so the question for me became, how is it that people are still struggling so much with so much spirit? And that is really what I see with a lot of Black women is like, how are we are the most religious demographic in the United States, and yet we struggle so much with basic things. Now, granted, obviously, I know systems, I know all of that stuff, I know how it works. You know, I understand, you know, patriarchy, I get racism and sexism, I get all of that. But even still, so that speaks to then what is the question, what is the function of spirituality if it can't help you do basic things like to ensure that your bills are paid regularly and consistently without struggle, or to find love and not have to be out here, struggling to find a mate, or, you know, when you're ready to have kids, or all those things that seem so basic in other communities. How is that still happening to us or for us or with us or whatever it is? And so when I talk about struggle spirituality, that's what I'm talking about. It's like everything. I feel like a lot of times in the Black church, our spirituality revolves around crisis. So it's like
Mm.
we know how to tap into spirit when we have a crisis, when we need to pray for something that's, you know, really like, Jesus, they about to turn off this light bill and I need to keep it on for these kids, you know, something like that. But it's like, how about, you know, you have more than enough to pay $100 light bill? How about that?
Right.
And so if that's not happening, and that's just one example, but
But
if
like
that's
what
not happening, then
but
what's going on?
right. And like what's God's job? What's our job? And if
Exactly.
and part of I think the challenge of that is, you know, raised in Black Baptist church as I was as well, we were raised with this all powerful, all knowing, all loving God who was supposed to take care of us, who was supposed to make it okay, who's supposed to provide for our every need, who was going to be closer than a mother, than a father, than a brother. This God that you would go to when you needed, when you had want, when you had desire, when you had need. And yet, so many of us still didn't have those needs met. And
Right.
so then the question becomes, what's God's job and what's my job? And if God is not the one making everything okay, how does it get okay?
Exactly. And I still don't have a clear answer to what's God's job, what's my job. All I know is the way that I work with it now is to pray, to put something out there that I need, want, whatever it is, and then to do my part, you know, in terms of creating it. And I think when we talked about, you know, going back to the light bill situation, it's like, you know, maybe the prayer needs to be, hey, I need some financial help, or I need, I need to learn how to budget, or I mean, basic things, you know what I mean? Again, that's just an example. But yeah, I think that understanding of, you know, what's God's role, what's our role is something that is often not made clear. And I always think back to when you call it like, you know, Sky Daddy, like our big Sky Daddy that we go to
Magic
whenever.
Sky Daddy.
Yeah, Magic Sky Daddy, whenever we need something. And it's like, it doesn't work like that.
Right.
And then I think you're often in the church, you're made to feel bad or like you're doing something wrong if it doesn't look like that.
Right.
And I'll tell you another thing, it makes me think a lot about, even just the nature and function of prayer, which is something I still struggle with because, and, when I think about, my mom passed away a few years ago, and it's like, I know my mom was praying to get better. I know she was praying to get well, and that is not what happened. She died.
Yeah.
And so it's just when I think about that and when I hold that, it just leaves me with a lot more questions. And I think the way that I was raised to believe or understand the nature of God, left a lot to be desired and was not totally accurate. And yet a lot of folks in the church still believe that way. I mean, I'm not here to tell people not to. I'm just saying for me, it didn't work. It doesn't work.
Yeah. Yeah. I think one of the real struggles, the real challenges that I had was I knew that and this for me, particularly after my parents died, I went through a period where I was like, so angry at God that I couldn't figure out how to be in relationship with God. And
Mhm.
I was so mad, and I was like, you're supposed to be good, and yet you took both my parents 7 weeks apart.
Mhm.
And so that to me became, okay, well, God can't be all good if that's what's true. If and so I think that over time, what I ultimately came to was it isn't even my job to understand God's job, because I
Mm.
still don't know. I
Mhm.
still don't know exactly what's my area and what's God's area. Um, but I do know that, one, for me, I need God. I need to have some sense of belief, some sense of faith. And number two, I don't know that I'll ever get an answer to what God's job is, but I do know that my job is to do the next right thing for me. Right.
Yeah.
And so, and sometimes I don't know what that is. Right. All the time, I don't know what that is.
Mhm.
And for me, what prayer is that process of connecting to myself, my higher self, connecting to spirit, connecting to ancestors, in the hopes of getting the guidance to the next right thing for me. And I don't know that I believe anymore that God magically does things for people. I don't know that I believe anymore that if I pray to God for a parking space, which I do all the time, I pray for a parking space every time I leave the house. I don't know that me getting the parking space has anything to do with God. It could just be that I lucked up on a parking space. But on the days when I get a parking space, I do say thank you.
Yeah. 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 On that day.
on that
On that
day,
day.
on that day, I give God the credit for the parking space.
Absolutely. And I mean, you know what? I agree with you. I think I'm coming to a similar place in that I connect with God, spirit, whatever it is, because I need to connect with something bigger than myself. Like that is just something that I need to do. Spirit for me is very comforting. And if nothing else, it brings me comfort. It brings that feeling of like, oh yeah, like I'm not just out here alone. Like
Yeah.
that's really what spirit so far has done for me. And it's a connector also.
Yeah.
It's a connector to the for me, like the different energies that I want to bring into my life. And it's a place for me to again focus my attention to go within myself,
Yeah.
to go to that ethereal plane, have that ethereal sacred experience that I need, and I think we as humans need,
Yeah.
whether it's for ritual, sacred space, all those things that I think are just something that we all need to connect with.
Yeah. And for me, going back to the ancestor piece, there was a very short period of time where I lost a lot of relatives at the same, like in a relatively short period of time. And for me, taking that time to speak to my ancestors, to be in community with my ancestors, keeps them alive in a way that I didn't know was going to be important.
Hmm.
I know people who believe that they will only get to be reunited with their loved ones in heaven. And so they have to live a perfect life now so that they can make it to heaven and be reunited with their loved ones. And I feel so sad for those people because I talk to my loved ones every day. You know, like I talk to my mom and dad and aunts and uncles and grandparents. I talk to them every single day. And if I'm making macaroni and cheese, I hear Franny in my head telling me, you know, that roux isn't good enough yet. You need to put a little bit more in there. You know what I mean? Like I'm getting instruction on the macaroni and cheese while I'm making it. And so and that may not be real, but it's real to me. Do you know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think we all, kind of going back to what you said about the pictures hanging in our house as our shrines, our unofficial altars and shrines. I think we do that in certain ways, whether it's, like in my family where we're always, the photo albums that we have, or the stories that we always tell when we get together on holidays, or when there's something funny going on in the family. I'll be like, Mama, did you see that? Did you just see that? What happened?
Right.
So and we'll laugh about it. So for me, that is a way of connecting. I think, the altar for me right now is still too sensitive for me to like connect with relatives I've lost recently. But yeah, just having that connection to my past, I think particularly as Black Americans, I think that for me feels very significant to have that connection.
I agree. I feel like because when we talk about ancestors, we're not just talking about the people that we knew who've passed. We're
Mhm.
talking about the people before them and before them and before that, all the way back to the first person, all the way, like all of,
Absolutely.
our ancestry is so rich and so diverse, and it has millions and billions of people, who millions and billions of energies who wish us well. And we only invite in the ones who wish us well.
Mhm.
um but
Mhm.
I think that's it's such a beautiful tradition, and I'm so glad that I ended up finding out or started working with my ancestors when I went to Brazil in 2003. And I saw a Pai dos Santos in the Candomblé tradition, and he said, you need to work with your ancestors. And I was like, yeah, okay, whatever. And the fact, and because I put it off for so long, I was getting all these messages like talk to your people, talk to your people. And when I finally sat down to do it, there was this and this is going to sound crazy to people who don't understand this world, but this energy kind of rushed me
Mhm.
and was like so happy to see me, but it scared the hell out of me.
Mhm. Mhm.
And I have since like learned to enjoy that energy and invite that energy in. But it's such a beautiful tradition that I wish more of us knew about and participated in, because it when you come from people who've been oppressed the way that we have for as long as we have, there is not only all the pain, but there's all of the triumph and the overcoming and the strength and the power to be able to make it, is all
Absolutely.
is all there. And I wish more of us were enjoying that, tapping into that energy, so that we remember who we are and where we come from, and who we are.
Yeah, I mean that connection, it's fruitful. It's fruitful, and for me, it just feels very soul nourishing.
Yeah.
And so I just love, being at my ancestral altar, just connecting. Sometimes they want me to sing, sometimes they want him, sometimes they want to hear John P. Key. I know that's my mama, and it's just like, okay, y'all, all
Yeah,
right,
sometimes you
you
put on
know,
some Mahalia or something for
you
whoever they're
know,
looking for, right?
yeah. And we just go in right there, or just connecting, chopping it up, just depends on the day.
Chopping it up
But
just because they dead don't mean you can't still chop it up.
exactly, exactly. And I think it's really for us, like that connection, like I said, it's a soul nourishing, fruitful connection and experience. At least that's what it's come to be for me.
Yeah,
So
me too.
mhm,
Absolutely. My cousin's
mhm.
in the watching the show, and this is our grandmother.
Oh,
Franny.
yeah.
That's who I be talking to when I'm making my mac and cheese. Um, so let's talk a little bit about ritual. I know that you use ritual in your own spiritual work, and you also help other people with ritual. Tell us about that, about the work that you do with other people.
Mm, it depends on, what's going on. I'll tell you, a quick story. I have a friend who I used to work with, and she had asked me to do a baby blessing for a friend of hers, and she said, something just told me to ask you to do this for me. Can you do it? And I said, absolutely. And I didn't know till the week of like what I was going to do. It just kind of like spirit just kind of guides me and lets me know what to do. And so for me, the ceremonies and rituals that I do with folks are all about almost like a rite of passage, because these days we no longer have ceremony opportunities to clearly mark things that have happened in our lives.
Yeah.
So whether it's a transition, as you were talking before, from motherhood to cronehood, whether it's death, whether it's a loss of a relationship or a breakup, or something happy like a baby coming, that is happy for many people. So an opportunity to have an outward expression, acknowledgement of this particular significant event in your life, the significant time in your life. How do we connect around that? How do we bring in the sacred spirit into that moment? How do we mark it for you as important? Because I think sometimes in life we just kind of go about our daily lives not realizing that we do need to mark things. Having a ceremony, having ritual rites of passage was so important to us. So to bring that back, to have an opportunity to share that with other people is a really big part of what I do and how I do it. So again, it just depends on what the need is, but it really is all about creating that container to connect with spirit and to clearly mark an ending, a beginning, to celebrate whatever it is. And so the elements can be different depending on what needs to happen.
I want to talk a bit about your work. You help women who give too much make themselves a priority. So how do I know if I'm a woman who gives too much or overextends myself? What are the symptoms of that?
So many. The main ones are you feel burnt out a lot. It's like no matter what you do, it's never enough. So when you're trying to do self-care, whether it's shopping, you go on vacation, you're sleeping a lot, you're eating whatever it is, it never fills you up. And you start to feel resentful of the things that you have to do for other people. Or someone's calling you for $1 to help them move, to watch their kids, whatever it is, and you find yourself ignoring phone calls and text messages because you don't want to hear from anybody. Those kinds of things where you realize, okay, something's wrong, I'm doing too much. That feeling of you're going to explode if someone asks you to do one more thing. you
One more
know
daggone thing.
yeah, I
Yeah.
was I was gonna say something else, but yeah, that's really the feeling. That's the feeling. I didn't remember where I was at. Anyway, yeah. So I would say those are some of the key symptoms.
So why should women want to put themselves first? Isn't that selfish? Why would they want to like what's up with that? Is that okay?
Listen, not only is it
I
okay,
one of
it
my
is
favorite
mission
things
critical.
What is wait, I'm gonna have you say that again, but one of my favorite things is when you start a sentence with listen, or the other one you do is look. Those, okay, so listen, you said not only is it
I don't
important.
remember. I was just flowing, but it's mission critical to put yourself first, because it's that saying that we always hear. When you're on the plane, like you got to put the oxygen mask on yourself first before anyone else. And as cliche as that might sound, it is absolutely true, because you will drown. You
Yeah.
will drown out here if you do not focus on yourself first. And I know it can be really hard, especially when people have kids or they have older parents that they're taking care of, or anyone that they're helping to support, and you've got a job and you've got all those things. And the reality is you can't make it, you can't do all of those things if you don't put yourself first. I'm telling you, I'm a witness to that. And I had to take time for myself, and something that I've learned to do over the years. But putting yourself first, it's not selfish. It's the main thing that you need to do. And when you do that, you have more to give and you don't feel so resentful. The other thing is when you're not taking care of yourself, putting yourself first, you start to get sick. Different illnesses, things. I mean, stress is a killer. Stress is a big killer. And so the idea to be able to nourish ourselves, to love on ourselves, to take care of ourselves. And for me, taking care of ourselves is really a big part of that is having boundaries. Like you mentioned, a lot of the work I do is around helping women to say no without feeling guilty. And that work is really around boundaries because, a lot of times we think about self-care as being, having a bath and those things are important, but also sometimes too, it's just about letting folks know what time it is and that
Okay.
you can't do this thing, or the answer is no. And that's it. And don't ask me anymore. And I'm not going to explain it to you.
And no is a complete sentence. Got a period right
Absolutely.
after it. Yeah.
Absolutely. And then when you can say no that way, you can also say yes that way. Yes can be a complete sentence so that you're excited to show up for things and things have more meaning and you have more intimacy in your life. You feel closer to people and you have an exuberance and a joy that you can have about yourself when you're really saying yes and no to things that you really want to.
Yeah. Yeah. You get to reserve the best of yourself. You get to bring the best of yourself to things when you're being mindful of when you say yes, when you say no, and why. You get to bring your best self to things when you're making decisions instead of just sort of letting life happen to you.
Absolutely. And I have to tell you, it really does, it drastically improves relationships. When you say yes when you mean yes and no when you mean no. And some folks might not like it at first, but it really does improve those relationships.
So what are if you could give women 3 things that they should be doing to put themselves first? Boundaries is one of them.
Yeah, boundaries is number one. I think you have to be the first thing, you really have to be honest with yourself. You have to be honest with yourself about what is too much. Looking at the things that you have on your plate and saying, is this too much? Can I handle this? And there's no shame in saying, I can't handle it. I can't do it.
Yeah.
Um, I would say a third thing would be to ask for help. The superwoman is human. And so to be able to say, I need help with whether it's, making dinner, taking care of these kids, or just, someone, doing something nice for you, having quiet time, giving you space, whatever it is, just having that really makes a difference.
Yeah. Who are your heroes? Who are you looking up to in the world today?
That's a tough question.
Isn't it? I'm good for those. Thanks.
I have to say, not a lot of people.
It's funny
I
because
don't know if I have an answer to this, to be honest.
I have some people, but I also have caveats with each one.
Yeah, which is why I'm like, I don't know. Who I'm looking up to, in a way, I think I mentioned him to you. I really like Kev on stage. I really like his brand. I like the way he's sort of built his empire and the way he has dealings with his friends and kind of involves his family in what he does, and to the best of his ability stays in integrity with what he does. So I would say that's someone that I look up to and acknowledge
That brother
in
got
that way.
serious hustle. I admire
Absolutely.
him.
Absolutely.
For him to have, he built his entire platform on social media, and I happen to know because I remember him saying this, that when he came to LA, he was having a hard time finding representation. But I wrote him a letter, an email, and I said, you know what? You don't need them. You don't need an agent. You don't need a manager because you've built all this yourself. So I think he's good. He's a good one to look up to. I have caveats because sometimes he's problematic, but I'm gonna co-sign on Kev on stage as someone to look up to for me, at least for the hustle factor. He's got serious hustle factor, which I appreciate.
Yeah, yeah. Who else? I mean, like I said, not a lot. I would throw Tabitha Brown in there in the same category. Like, I think she's funny. I mean, height pandemic, like, I mean, I started watching her videos and I mean, they just brought me so much joy and made
Joy,
me
right?
laugh. And I was just like, I mean, she's just such, I love that Southern North Carolina drawl that she has. It just makes
Mm-hmm.
me feel all warm and wonderful. Um, yeah, that's about where I'm drawing the line,
All
honestly.
right.
I just,
I
yeah,
respect that.
leave
I
it at
respect
that.
that. It's, I think for me, as I've gotten older, finding heroes has gotten harder because I'm much more aware that people are whole people and not just that one, like Oprah is a whole person, not just the person I loved when I was 12 years old. She's a whole person, and that whole person is wonderful, and I admire her in so many ways, but I also have a problem with the fact that she owns part of Weight Watchers, and there's nothing wrong with if you do what you want to do, handle your own business however you want to. But Oprah's in a position to me to help people get out of diet culture, and she's bought 8% of it. So, so for me, she's one of those heroes that I also critique in some way.
Yeah, I think for me, I've kind of always been this way. I can't say I've really had role models or people that I've looked up to in that way in my life throughout my life, really. I mean, and similar to what you said, I think I've always had that sense of people being whole individuals. And there are things, maybe traits or things that I admire about people. But I don't really put people on pedestals in that way. I just don't.
I think
So
that's a wise thing, not to put people on pedestals. I think
yeah.
that's wise. So, one last question, and we're going to wrap it up. If you were going to advise some spiritual practices for people to take on, what are some spiritual practices that matter to you and move you toward life with a capital L? Uh-oh. Did you freeze? Did I freeze?
The one thing that I would say is oh, hold on.
You're back. You're
Am
back.
I there?
Yeah, you're back.
Okay. The one thing I would say is meditation. And that can just be quiet contemplation, just sitting, lighting a candle, taking some deep breaths, just going within, having some quiet time. That's something that really makes a big difference. Um, if you want to connect to spirit in a way that feels good to you, so whether that's having an altar, whether that's getting out in nature, whether that's dancing, whatever it is, just have that way of connecting. And also just showing up authentically in your relationships.
Yeah.
Really loving people. If you say you love people, call people, connect, check in, let folks love on you, just being present
Mhm.
for and with other people, to me is a spiritual experience and is extremely, extremely important and valuable.
Wonderful. Well, Trina, thank you so much for coming on the show today and being my guest.
Oh, you're
We
so
could
welcome.
we could talk for another 7 or 8 hours,
Totally.
but we are going to cut it off here. It was a pleasure to have you. Tell people where they can find you.
You can find me on Instagram at Love Trina or at justputtingmefirst.com. If you want more information to reach out to me, those are the best ways. You can also find me on Facebook, Love Trina.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Trina.
Thank you. Great talk.
Thank you. So that's all, folks. Links to Trina's information will be in the show notes. You can watch this episode on Facebook or on YouTube as soon as tonight, or you can watch it on Instagram tomorrow, or listen wherever it is you find your podcast tomorrow. If you want exclusive content, remember you can join me at Patreon. And if you want to help the show, feel free to send me your Venmo donations, or you can join me on Patreon. And as usual, it's been a blast. Thank you to my guest, Trenia Parham. Thank you for joining me. Remember to get your play, pray, and slay on, and sparkle as you go. See you next week, all.